Welcome to this GCSE Mathematics tutorial. In this tutorial we will be focusing on algebra topics for GCSE Mathematics. If you would like to access this quiz, you can do so by clicking the link in the description and you can have a practice at these topics. So question 1 part A, we have minus x plus 5 minus 3x minus 8 plus 5x. So you can see we have 3x terms here. We have minus 1 for the coefficient there. We have minus 3 and 5 for the x terms. So we can draw a little table here just so we can organize all the different terms. So for the x terms we have minus 1. There's a minus 1 there. It's not written there. And you have minus 3. So minus 3. And you have positive 5. So let's just put positive 5 there. So if we simplify this, minus 1 minus 3 is minus 4, and then minus 4 plus 5 will give us 1. Now we look at the constants. So the constants just refers to the numbers. So the constants are plus 5. So we have plus 5 and we have minus 8. So 5 minus 8 is going to be minus 3, and that is done for that. So we have 1x. So we just need to put x for that and minus 3. And that is simplified. Now for part B, we have to firstly expand the brackets here. So we have 2 times 2x. And then we are doing 2 times 4. And then here we're doing minus 4 times 4x. And minus 4 times minus 2. And then we're adding 6 to that result. So if we expand these first, so 2 times 2x, that is going to be 4x. 2 times 4 is going to be 8. Minus 4 times 4x is going to be minus 16x. And we have minus 4 times minus 2. So minus times minus is positive. So we have plus 8 and we have plus 6 at the end. So we can do a similar thing down here. Just draw a table. So that's going to be for the x terms on this column. And we have the constants on this column. So the constants. So that is going to be 4x, so we have 4x there, and minus 16, so minus 16. And then we simplify that down, so 4 take away 16 is going to be negative 12. So we have negative 12x. And now for the constants, we have 8, and we have 8 again, and we have 6. So 8 plus 8 is 16. 16 plus 6 is going to be 22. So now we have plus 22. And that is done for question 1. Now let's look at question 2. So question 2 says evaluate 2 squared times 2 to the power of 3 times 2 to the negative 3. So we want to follow BIDMAS for this. So if we just write down BIDMAS, so BIDMAS. So there's no brackets here. We do indices first, so we can see there are indices. There's no division, so we can cross out division. And there is multiplication. There's no addition and there's no subtraction. So first we evaluate the indices. So 2 squared is going to be 4. 2 to the power of 3 is 8. And 2 to the negative 3, that just means put that as the denominator. So the negative means you're putting that down as the denominator. So that is 2 to the power of 3, which is going to be 8. So 4 times 8 is going to be 32 over 8. 32 divided by 8 is going to be 4. So the answer to that is 4. We'll now do this one here. So we have to follow BIDMAS again. So you can see there's no brackets here. There is indices. There is division. And there's also multiplication. So we have to do division first and then multiplication after we have evaluated the indices. So 3 cubed is going to be 27 divided by 3 to the power of 4. So remember, 3 to the power of 4 just means 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. We know 3 cubed here is 27. So we want to work out 27 times 3. So if we just work that out, so 27 times 3. So 3 times 7 is 21. So we put a 1 there and carry the 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus 2 is 8. So the answer to that is 81. So 3 to the power of 4 is 81 times 3 squared, which is 9. So first we want to do the division. So 27 divided by 81. So 27 divided by 81. 3 goes into 27 9 times, and 3 would go into 81. Well, we need to work that out. So 81 divided by 3. 3 goes into 8 twice with a remainder of 2. 3 goes into 21 7 times. Okay, so that's going to be 27 here. 3 goes into 9 3 times. 3 goes into 27 9 times. And this would simplify down to 1/3. So all of this here, 27 divided by 81, is 1/3. So we want to work out 1/3 times 9. So 1/3 times 9. So we can write 9 as a fraction by putting 1 on the denominator. So it's going to be 1 times 9 is 9. 3 times 1 is 3. 9 divided by 3 is just 3. So the answer to this is just 3. And that is done for question 2. Now let's look at question 3. So for question 3, we want to expand 5 times 4x plus 3. So 5 times 4x. So we just expand this here. So we put the arrows in. 5 times 4x is 20x. 5 times 3 is 15. And that is done. So now we want to factorize 20x plus 35. So if we look at 20 and 35, the highest common factor between 20 and 35 is going to be 5. So that means we have 5 outside our bracket. And then we have to times 5 by 4 to get 20. So we put 4 there and we have an x there as well. So that is 4x plus 7. Because 5 times 7 gives us 35. So that is done. So now if we look at part C, it says factorize minus 15x cubed y squared plus 9x squared y cubed. So for the coefficients, we have minus 15 and 9, and the highest common factor for those two is going to be 3. So we know the highest common factor for minus 15 and 9 is going to be 3. So if we just write that here, so HCF equals 3. So we can have 3 outside our brackets. And now if we just focus on the x and y terms, so that x cubed there, we can write that as x times x times x. And the y squared there, we can write as y times y plus x squared, which is going to be x times x. And y cubed is y times y times y. So now we can do a little Venn diagram here. So if we draw a little Venn diagram, just so we can see which terms overlap. So we can see that there are 2 x's in common. So 2 x's in common. So we put x there and x there. And we can see that there are also 2 y's in common. So we put y and y inside there as well. And we're left with x here. And we are left with y there. So now we draw our brackets. So if we draw our brackets, we had plus in the middle. So we put plus there. The highest common factor between 15 and 9 was 3. So we put a 3 outside. And we want to put the highest common factor outside as well. So we have x times x, which is x squared. And we have y times y, which is y squared. And we're left with x inside here. And we're left with y inside there. So now we need to work out what do we times 3 by to get minus 15. That is going to be minus 5. And what do we have to times 3 by to get positive 9? That will be 3. And that is done. So we can double check this by expanding. So if we expand this bracket, we get back to this term because the x squared term there would times the x to get x cubed, and y squared would stay as it is. And then 3 times 3y would get 9, and the x squared term there stays as it is, and the y squared term would turn into y cubed. So we know that this is definitely correct. Okay, so let's look at question 4. We want to expand these brackets here. So we have x times x, and then we have x times negative 2, and then we have negative 6 times x, and negative 6 times negative 2. So we want to do x times x, which is x squared. So that's x squared. And then x times negative 2 is negative 2x. Negative 6 times x is negative 6x. And then we have negative 6 times negative 2. That is going to be positive 12. So we have x squared minus 2x minus 6x, that is going to be minus 8x plus 12. So plus 12, and that is the answer for part A. So factorize x squared plus 7x plus 6. So what we want to do here is get two numbers that multiply to give the constant term at the end, which is 6, and the same two numbers should also add to give the x coefficient of 7. So we want two numbers that multiply to give 6, and the same two numbers should also add up to give 7. So let's go through the possible pairs that multiply to give 6. So we have 1 times 6, we have 2 times 3, we have negative 2 times negative 3, and we have negative 1 times negative 6. So 2 plus 3 is 5, that doesn't work. Minus 2 minus 3 doesn't work, so that would be negative 5. And we have minus 1 times minus 6, that is going to be 6. But if we add them, we get negative 7, so that doesn't work. And then 1 plus 6 there, that is the pair that we want. So inside our brackets, we're going to have x plus 1, and we're going to have x plus 6. And to solve this, so we are solving the same quadratic, but now it's been made into an equation. So we want to solve this. So we've already factored it. So now we just take each bracket and set it equal to 0, because we already know this quadratic here after factorizing will give us 0. So we're going to have x, so that's x plus 1 equals 0. And we have x plus 6 equals 0. So then we solve for x here. So x there is going to come out to be negative 1. So x equals negative 1. And for this equation, x is going to come out to be negative 6. And we could tell this because if we've done negative 1 plus 1, that gives 0. And here, if we've done negative 6 plus 6, that also gives 0. So these are the two solutions. So we have x equals negative 1 and x equals negative 6. Okay, let's do question 5. So we have this equation here which we need to solve. So if we just start off by expanding those brackets, so we have 3 times x and 3 times negative 5, so that is going to be 3x, and 3 times negative 5 is going to be negative 15, and that is equal to 2x minus 18. So we want to get all x terms onto one side. So if we just start off by subtracting 2x from this side and this side, so I chose the 2x because 2x is smaller than 3x, so that when I subtract, I avoid going into negative numbers. So if I subtract 2x from this side here and from this side, I get x minus 15 equals 0. So this became 0 now, and that is just going to be minus 18 here. Okay, so now I add 15 because I want to get rid of this term, so I add 15 to make that 0. So add 15 to that side and that side as well. So I end up with x equals, so minus 18 plus 15, that is going to be minus 3. So x equals minus 3, so x here is minus 3. So now if we want to solve this equation here, we have x over 4 plus 2 equals 6. So we have x over 4 plus 2 equals 6. So we want to get rid of this 2 here to get x on its own. So we subtract 2 from this side and this side. So we end up with x over 4 plus 0. So this became 0 here because 2 take away 2 is 0 equals 6 take away 2 is 4. So now to find what x is, so here x is being divided by 4, so undo that division by timesing both sides by 4, you end up with x equals 16. So x is equal to 16. Okay, so let's have a look at question 6. So let's try and solve this simultaneous equation here. So we have 4x minus 2y equals 2, and we have 8x minus 2y equals minus 2. So first let's make our grid. So we have our grid here. So we want to label the equations and we want to organize the terms of that equation into a grid so that we can manipulate the equation. So in this column here we're going to have our equation. So this is equation 1 and this is equation 2. So we've got x terms we've got y terms, and we've got constants. So I was going to put C there for constants. So the constants are just the numbers. So for equation 1, we have 4x, so we'll just put a 4 in there, minus 2, and we have 2 here for the constant. And for equation 2, so equation 2, we have 8 for the x, so 8x minus 2, and that is going to be minus 2 there. So we want to eliminate the y terms, so we can see here we have minus 2, and we have minus 2 here for the y terms. So if we've done minus 2 minus minus 2, that gives us 0. So we want to do equation 1 take away equation 2. Okay, so here if we've done minus 2 minus minus 2, that is the same thing as adding. So 2 minuses mean adding, so that is minus 2 plus 2, which is 0. So we want to subtract. Okay, so we have 4 take away 8, that is going to be negative 4. And we have minus 2 take away minus 2, that is going to be 0. And 2 take away minus 2, that is going to be 4. So if we're done 2 take away negative 2, that will give us 4. Okay, so now we have minus 4x, so that's minus 4x equals the constant 4. Okay, so therefore x is going to come out to be, so if we divide both sides by negative 4, we get 4 over negative 4, which is going to be negative 1. So now we know x is equal to negative 1. Okay, so now we know x equals negative 1. We can choose whichever equation we want to substitute x into to calculate y. So if I just substitute x into equation 1, so we have 4x minus 2y equals 2. We knew x was negative 1, so replace x there with negative 1. So we're going to have 4 times negative 1 minus 2y equals 2. So 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. And we have minus 2y equals 2. So now if I add 4 to both sides, okay, so if I add 4 to this side and this side, so if I just write it here, so by adding 4 on both sides, I end up with negative 2y equals 6. So I added 4 here to get 0, and added 4 on that side to get 6. So I end up with minus 2y equals 6. So now I divide both sides by negative 2. So therefore y is going to come out to be negative 3. So y here is negative 3. And that is done for question 6. Okay, so if we look at question 7, so if we want to solve this inequality here, we need to firstly take this inequality and break it up into 2 separate inequalities. So I have here 5x minus 7 is less than or equal to 13, and I also have 5x minus 7 is greater than or equal to negative 2. So if I split this up, I have minus 2 is less than or equal to 5x minus 7, and I also have 5x minus 7 is less than or equal to 13. So now I've got 2 separate inequalities to solve, and then once I've solved them, I can then put them back together to create the final inequality. So for this inequality here, so I have minus 2 equals 5x minus 7. So if I add 7 to both sides, I'm going to end up with 5 equals 5x. And I now divide by 5 on both sides, so I end up with 1 equals x. So then I put that inequality back in, so we're going to end up with that inequality, so 1 and x. So therefore, one solution to this is x is greater than or equal to 1. So this is our first solution. Now I'll take this inequality here and solve for that one. So I have 5x minus 7 is less than or equal to 13. Well, I'll just treat this as a normal equation, so just add 7 to both sides. So I have 5x equals 20. I then divide both sides by 5, I get x equals 4. Okay, so then I put the inequality back in. So we have x is less than or equal to 4. So these are our two solutions. So this is one solution here, and this is one solution here. So now if I combine them together, I have x is less than or equal to 4, and x is greater than or equal to 1. So that is the solution to this question. So now on the line, I need to adjust the position of the circles to represent this inequality here. So we had less than or equal to 4. So I adjust this part here to 4, and greater than or equal to 1. So then I adjust that bit here. And because this inequality is inclusive, this inequality here would be strictly less than 4 and greater than 1. To include the 4, I have to make these circles solid. So if you just click on them, they become solid. So that is now the correct inequality. So this is different to saying just less than 4 and greater than 1. Okay? So this represents now less than or equal to 4 or greater than or equal to 1. So now let's look at question 8. So for question 8, we want to find the first 4 terms of this sequence. So all you need to do for that is replace n with 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. So if we get the first term, we have 3 times 1 plus 6. We work this out. Then we have 3 times 2 plus 6. Work that one out. 3 times 3 plus 6. Work that out. And then 3 times 4 plus 6, and work that one out. Okay, so 3 times 1 is 3 plus 6 is 9. 3 times 2 is 6 plus 6 is 12. 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 plus 16 is going to be 15. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 plus 6 is 18. So these are the first 4 terms, so we just write them down here. So we have 9, 12, 15, and 18. The sequence is 0, 5, 10, 15, 20. Write down the nth term as an expression. So we want to find the nth term of this sequence. So the formula to remember is the nth term an equals d times n minus 1 plus a1. So d there is the common difference, and a1 is the first term. So the nth term is the common difference. So what does this go up in? So we can see this goes up in 5s. So d is going to be positive 5 n minus 1 plus a1. a1 is 0, so the first term is 0. So we don't need to write anything for that. So therefore we're just going to have 5n minus 5. And this is the nth term for that sequence. Okay, so we can test this out by putting n equals 1 into there. So we put n equals 1, we get 5 times 1 is 5. Take away 5 is 0. So the first term is 0, so that's correct. If we put down n equals 2 for the second position on the sequence, 5 times 2 is 10. 10 take away 5 is 5, so that is the second term. So this is correct. So the final sequence is just 5n minus 5. Okay, let's look at question 9. So we have evaluate 2x squared plus 3y for x equals negative 3 and y equals negative 2. So with these substitution problems, you just want to write out the expression again, but just substitute the values given. So we have 2 times, so x was negative 3, so that's negative 3 squared, plus 3 times y, so plus 3 times y, where y was negative 2. And then we just evaluate this. So we follow BIDMAS to evaluate this. So first let's do the indices. So we have 2 times negative 3 squared. So negative 3 squared is 9. So we have 9 inside there. Plus 3 times negative 2, that is going to be negative 6. Okay. So 2 times 9 is 18. And plus and minus there, that's just going to be minus. And then 6. So 8 take away 6, that is going to be 12. So the answer to this is 12. We now do the same thing with this. So ab squared minus 4a. So a was negative 4. So we have negative 4. So put that in brackets. Times b squared. So b was negative 5. So b squared minus 4 times a, where a is negative 4. And now we've made the substitutions, now we just evaluate this. So we have negative 4 times minus 5 squared. So minus 5 squared is going to be 25. So that's 25. Minus 4 times negative 4 is going to be negative 16. And we now continue the workings out. So minus 4 times 25, that's going to be minus 100. Minus and minus there makes a plus, so it's going to be plus 16. So the answer to this is going to be negative 84. So the answer to that is negative 84. Okay, so now let's look at question 10. So for question 10, we are going to be generating the y values on this table. So we have y equals 2x plus 2. So with this, it might be easier to draw a number machine. So if we have x as our input, we are then times them by 2, so times 2, and then we are adding 2, and then we get our value for y. So if I just put these in boxes here. So if we put our first value for x into here, so negative 2, so we get negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 plus 2 is going to be negative 2. Okay, so negative 1 goes in for x, so 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 2 is going to be 0. Okay, then we put 0 into here, so that if that x there becomes 0, this whole term goes, leaving behind the 2. And if we put 1 into here, so 1 times 2 is 2, and then 2 plus 2 is 4. And then we put x equals 2 into there, so 2 times 2 is 4, and then 4 plus 2, that is going to be 6. So on this equation of a straight line, you should recognize that 2 there, this 2 next to the x is the gradient. So whatever number is next to the x, that is the gradient, and that tells you what this is increasing up in. And the number by itself, that tells you where the line would cut the y-axis. So now we're going to plot these points onto this graph. So if we click unlock plot in here, we have these points to plot. So the first point we have is minus 2, minus 2. So you always go along the x first and then along the y. So that's minus 2, minus 2. We then have minus 1, 0. So we go to minus 1 and 0. Just means we're not moving. So that was supposed to be minus 2 there. So that's 0 on the y. We then have 0, 2. Okay, so you go to the 0 position and then up 2. You then have 1, 4. So if we grab this point here and go to, so that's 1, and then go up to 4. And then we have 2, 6. So we go here, and we go up to 2, and then up to 6. So these are the points plotted here. So that's minus 2, minus 2. And we have minus 1, 0. So minus 1, 0 on the y. So 0, 2. 1, 4, so that's 1 along the x, and then 4 up, and then 2, 6, so that's 2 along the x, and then 6 up on the y. So if I just label what these points are, so this point here would be negative 2, negative 2. This point here would be negative 1, 0. This point here is going to be 0, 2. This point is going to be 1, 4, so that's 1, 4. And this point here is 2, 6. 2, 6. So the left number on the coordinates is always the x movement. Okay, so you go along the x first and then the y. So x first, y, and so on. Okay. So that is the end of the questions on this algebra review for GCSE Mathematics. If you would like to continue practicing these types of questions, you can find a link in the description where you can continue practicing your algebra skills. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.